Somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico, a man is flying home. He is in a helicopter, watching the platform shrink below him, steel and fire and noise, until it disappears into the water like it was never there. He has been gone for 28 days. He smells like diesel. He has not slept through a night in a month. And somewhere in his gut, he already knows he will be back. About 1.7 million people work in the offshore oil and gas industry worldwide. They earn some of the highest wages available to people without college degrees, roughnecks averaging close to $97,000 a year, drillers pushing well past $150,000, rig managers clearing $250,000 or more. They work half the year and get paid for all of it. They get free food, free housing, free transport. On paper, it sounds like the best deal in the trades. But here is what most people miss. The money is not the reward. The money is the trap. Today, we are going inside one of the world's most psychologically complex work environments to understand why, once a person starts working on an oil rig, leaving feels genuinely impossible. Not uncomfortable, not risky, impossible. We are going to look at the financial machinery that locks workers in, the way the rotation system slowly dismantles a person's connection to ordinary life, the mental health crisis quietly unfolding 60 miles offshore, and the almost eerie way the job colonizes a worker's identity until they cannot picture themselves doing anything else. Let's start with the money, because you can't understand this story without it. A roustabout, the most entry-level position on a rig, can walk onto a platform with nothing but a high school diploma and start earning $50,000 to $70,000 a year. No debt, no years of school, no internship. Just show up, work hard, and a year later there is more money in the account than most of their friends will see in 2 years at a regular job. For someone who grew up without much, this can feel transformative, revolutionary even. So workers do what humans do when money arrives. They spend it. The bigger house, the newer truck, the ATV in the garage, the boat, the kids in a better school district, the wife who doesn't have to work anymore. The holidays that actually feel like holidays. Men's mental health counselor Bill Jeffrey, who has worked with oil and gas workers for years in Newfoundland, has a name for what happens next. He calls it golden handcuffs. Workers describe the moment their lifestyle catches up to their income as the moment the door closed. As Jeffrey puts it, the salary is so great, the lifestyle creeps up. Bigger house, more toys, and suddenly these guys feel like they can't leave the industry. That feeling, he says, is a horrible place to be, because now the math has changed. Quitting doesn't mean going back to a simpler life. It means losing the house, pulling the kids out of school, telling your partner that the vacation is canceled and the truck payment is late and maybe you need to sell the boat. It means a conversation that nobody wants to have. So workers don't have it. They book the next rotation instead. Drop a comment below if you've ever stayed in a job longer than you wanted to because the money was too good to leave. Because what happens on oil rigs is that dynamic, pushed to its absolute extreme. Now let's talk about what the rotation actually does to a person, because this is where it gets strange. The most common schedule in offshore drilling is 28 days on, 28 days off. Some rigs run 14 days on and 14 days off. A few run 21 days on and 21 days off. The idea is simple. Workers are compensated for extended isolation with extended time at home. Half the year working, half the year free. In theory, it is a brilliant arrangement. In practice, it creates what researchers call a two-life problem. On the rig, workers run 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week for the entire rotation. There are no Saturdays, no Sundays. The rig does not stop producing because it is someone's birthday. Workers wake up, they eat, they work, they sleep, and they do it again for 28 days. Every meal is provided. Every bed is provided. Every decision about food, shelter, and time is made for them. The structure is total. Then they fly home. And home for many of these workers is another planet. There are choices. Dozens of small, meaningless choices that the rig never required them to make. What to eat, when to sleep, how to fill a Tuesday afternoon. Suddenly, there is a partner who has been running the household alone for a month. Kids who have developed new routines. A social world that moved on without them. Workers describe the first few days home as disorienting in a way that is hard to explain to people who have not experienced it. Kelly Earle, whose husband Jamie has worked offshore for over 20 years, wrote an entire book about this dynamic. She describes their family as living life one hitch at a time. Jamie missed their oldest child's first steps. He has missed Christmas. When he tries to watch milestone moments on video later, the footage is not the same, and both of them know it. A 2021 systematic review published in BMJ found that rotation workers do not fully decompress during their time off. Sleep quality is poor in both phases of the cycle. Mental distress follows workers home. The off period is not really rest. It is a holding pattern before the next departure. Some workers report that the last week of shore leave is already shadowed by dread about going back. They are never fully present in either place. The relationship damage is real, and it is well documented. Separation anxiety in children. Partners who grow independent out of necessity and then find the worker's presence disruptive. High rates of infidelity reported on both ends. The social contract between worker and family fractures slowly, almost imperceptibly, until one day someone admits it out loud. And here is what makes quitting even harder at this stage. Leaving the industry does not automatically fix any of this. It just means having less money while still doing the painful work of rebuilding relationships that the rotation eroded. Workers who have tried to quit and come back describe the conversation with their family going something like, "I thought you said you were done." And then they have to explain that they tried normal life and felt useless, because that is the other piece of this. The identity piece. About 1 in 5 oil and gas workers, roughly 19% according to research by Cooper and Sutherland, suffer from a diagnosable psychological disorder, anxiety, depression, shift work disorder, which is what happens when the circadian rhythm is so disrupted that the brain can no longer regulate sleep normally. A 2023 survey found that nearly 40% of offshore energy workers reported having experienced suicidal thoughts while on duty. That is not a footnote. That is a crisis. But the industry is built around a culture of stoicism that makes it almost impossible to talk about any of this openly. Workers learn early that showing vulnerability on a rig is professional suicide. The rig rewards toughness, physical endurance, the ability to show up and perform regardless of what is happening internally. Over years, workers do not just adopt this as a professional behavior, they internalize it as a personal identity. They become the job. And this is the third lock on the door. When a worker has spent 10 or 15 years building an identity around being someone who survives conditions that would break ordinary people, someone tough enough, capable enough, essential enough to keep one of the most complex industrial machines on Earth running. What does it mean to become an office worker, a retail manager, a construction laborer making a fraction of the wages? The skills that make an offshore worker exceptional are almost entirely non-transferable. Deep knowledge of subsea drilling systems, high-pressure blowout prevention, marine equipment maintenance. These are not skills that map onto civilian job listings. Experienced workers who try to leave the industry sometimes find that they cannot explain what they do on a resume in a way that a land-based employer understands. The expertise is real and vast, and worth nothing outside the context it was built in. Non-transferable. If you have found this video useful so far, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this kind of content reach people who need to hear it. There is also a brutal economic variable that workers rarely anticipate when they first sign on. The industry is cyclical in a way that removes choice at the worst possible moments. Oil prices crashed in 2014. Tens of thousands of experienced offshore workers were laid off globally. Men who had built their entire financial lives around rig salaries were suddenly unemployed, overqualified for everything else, and in many cases, deep in debt from the lifestyle the income had funded. A rig zone survey from that period found that 52% of workers with more than 20 years of experience were unemployed, and yet 83% were still looking for work in oil and gas, not in other sectors. They could not pivot. The handcuffs had become load-bearing walls. When prices eventually recovered, many of those same workers went straight back to the rigs, not because they wanted to, but because there was no other version of the story. It would be easy, watching all of this from the outside, to wonder why anyone would sign up for it. But that is not quite the right question. Most workers do not sign up knowing what they are agreeing to. A 19-year-old from a small town who needs work and gets offered $55,000 a year with no experience required is not thinking about what his life will look like at 45. He is thinking about this month. This is how almost every industry captures its most essential workers, not through deception, but through a sequence of individually reasonable decisions that collectively build a structure that is very hard to dismantle. The people who manage to leave successfully, and some do, tend to have done one of two things. Either they saved aggressively from the beginning, kept their lifestyle modest, and gave themselves a real exit number, or they found work in adjacent industries, offshore wind, marine construction, subsea engineering, where the rotation model is similar, but the long-term outlook feels less compromised. The workers who struggle most are the ones who believed somewhere in year 3 or 4 that the money would keep coming indefinitely. They believed the good times were permanent. They believed there would always be time to make a different choice later. There is something genuinely affecting about these workers if you let yourself look at the full picture, not the romanticized version, the rugged heroes extracting civilization's lifeblood from the deep, but the real version. People who traded ordinary time for extraordinary pay and then, years in, found that the trade was harder to unwind than it looked. People who love their families from a distance and tell themselves the money makes up for the absence. People who fly home and feel like visitors in their own houses, then fly back to the one place where they know exactly who they are and what they're doing. The rig, in a strange way, is where they make sense, and that might be the most powerful lock of all.